right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we are talking about A Complete Unknown, James Mangold's new film about Bob Dylan, starring Timothee Chalamet. And joining me to talk about it, we've got writer Corey Levitan joining me. His first time on the show. We get into a lot of great puzzle pieces, and Corey brings some stories about my mom as well. So we'll get into that too. But before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. We've got a lot of episodes on the way. So wherever you're listening right now, hit that subscribe or follow button, whatever it is. And you could also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod on the Instagram, the Twitter, the Blue Sky, wherever you are at. Also on Facebook, we do have a group, the Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces group, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. With that said, let's get into A Complete Unknown. All right, it's time to get into A Complete Unknown. And joining me, we've got Corey Levitan, first time on the podcast. How's it going, Corey?
Hi, David Rosen. How are you?
I'm great.
Would you like to explain to your audience why your mother has a naked picture of me in her bathroom?
We're just going right into it, huh? Just getting right into it, huh? Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, I always, when I have somebody new on the show, they always have to introduce themselves and tell my listeners a little about what they do and who they are. So I guess that's a good place to start. But yeah, tell my listeners a little about you, Corey.
Well, I used to be a big, the big knocker? What's the word? The Yiddish word? In Vegas? Knocker? I don't know. Sonny would know. I had a column in the Review Journal. It was very funny, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm nobody. But back then, your mom hunted me down. She actually ran into me twice. Once in Trader Joe's and once in Costco, screaming about you. And screaming, my son, Corey, oh my God, Corey, I love you. My son is going to be the next rock star. You have to help my son. And she had the thickest New York accent, and I'm from New York, and she just won me over. And I'm so glad that I engaged with the stalker, because you guys ended up being my closest friends, pretty much. My family's closest friends for the last 5 years that we lived in Vegas. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
No, yeah, and she is a lot. She's been on the podcast before. She's always fun to get on the show, and yeah, I'm sure she's going to be very happy to hear that you were on it today. But
and why is there a naked picture? Okay, so my columns were all like, I did different jobs around Vegas, crazy jobs. One of them was a model, a nude model for an art class. So they gave me this big frame thing. Oh no, your mom framed it. They gave me this big photo, and this big sketch, and I didn't know what to do with it. So your mom's like, I'll take it. She just wanted to piss your dad off.
So what do you do with it? You give it to some Jewish lady from New York who just wants to put it in her bathroom.
She had become a friend by then. And by the way, the artist was very kind to me. I'll put it that way.
Amazing. Yeah. So we're gonna get into A Complete Unknown, which I gotta say, we kind of talked about this on Facebook a little bit. I know you liked it more than I did, but I was kind of going into it with that. I've watched all these movies for this podcast over these last 6 years. I love movies, but music biopics I'm a little burnt out on. And so I went into this with a little bit of a, oh boy, okay, I guess. What was your thoughts going in as a movie fan, but also as a huge Bob Dylan fan? What were you thinking going into this?
I'm actually not a huge Bob Dylan fan. I think I only know probably a third of his output, but he was very important to me growing up. I was into the Beatles, and through them I got into Dylan, and he always just struck me as someone who was just like some alien, him and Bowie both, just aliens just transported to Earth. Like they found a niche for themselves in popular music, but they really don't belong here. Yeah. And so I read about all these things, Newport, when he pissed everybody off and went electric, and and the affair with Joan Baez. My first career was as a rock journalist, and so like we all have to have this like basic Dylan knowledge, and
Sure.
so I had these ideas in my head about what these moments in rock history, they weren't just Dylan history, it was rock history, what they looked like. And my imagination isn't really so amazing. So they were kind of thin sketches. So I know this is fiction. I realize that's not Bob Dylan on the screen, but just to fantasize that I was there and
Mm.
see the stage and see the people booing. And yes, I know that Judas didn't come in Newport. That was in England. I know those things, but I forgave the director for because you have to do some changing stuff around to
Yeah, of course.
tell a
Of course.
story.
I think
Uh,
that's like not the biggest issue in the world. I mean, I love Gladiator. That shit didn't happen. You know what I mean? So what's the big what's the
right.
big deal? So but yeah, I kind of felt the same way about Dylan. Like I like almost everything I've ever heard from him, but I've never really gone through like my Dylan phase. I've never dug into all the albums or anything like that, and
Yeah.
obviously there are plenty to get into, but yeah, so I guess I'm coming from it Dylan wise, from kind of the same point of view here. But yeah, with that said, we'll have plenty to talk about along the way. But let's start getting into the whole puzzle pieces
Sure.
thing. What do you have for your first puzzle piece for Complete Unknown?
Well, I'm sorry if this is a little predictable, but Amadeus is one of my favorite movies. I don't consider it was it biopic or biopic? I hear it both ways.
I hear it both ways as well.
Yeah,
So
I don't
yeah,
consider this a music biopic. It's a movie. It's a beautiful movie about musical genius and the struggle to live a normal life when you're cursed with it, but also mostly it's about the people around the genius and the torture that the genius puts them through just for believing in him. And I think the same exact thing happens is shown uh, in the Dylan film.
yeah, no, absolutely. And Amadeus is like the best of these kinds of movies, and partially because it takes every liberty that it needs to tell an exciting, amazing, fun story with great performances, great music, all of what you want out of these. And a friend of mine, Daniel Howitt, just got a chance to interview James Mangold, and he talked about how big of an influence Milos Forman was, and so I mean, Amadeus had to have been a major influence on this movie for sure. But yeah, it is just such a fun movie, and I wish more of these would take big risks like that and just saying, you know what, screw it. We already kind of know the broad strokes. Let's just have some fun with telling this guy's story. That would be a little bit more exciting. I'll go for my first puzzle piece. I'll go to Bohemian Rhapsody, which I sound like a broken record when I bring this one up when it comes to music biopics, but I really do feel like it set the train in motion for the next decade of music biopics, where it's like, we know that once we get people into the theater, if we play the hits, they're going to be happy. Like that is the most important thing for like kind of the broad audience. And I think Bohemian Rhapsody, I'm mixed on the movie. I know a lot of people loved it, but it did that well, at least. It's like going to a concert, basically, in the movie theater. And I think A Complete Unknown does a really good job of that because we get a lot of performance. And, Timothee Chalamet does a great job approximating a Bob Dylan here, as does Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. So, we get a lot of great performance work here. And so, even though Bohemian Rhapsody, it's all lip synced,
Yeah,
we still get to hear the songs. So
I would have liked to have. I forgot the actor's name. I would have liked to have seen him lip sync, and I was disappointed when it wasn't Borat, but I'm kind of glad that he never got that part because
yeah,
I
it
don't
would have been a
think
very different movie. Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, let's go on to another piece. What do you got next?
well, I'm not. You said that this was who I thought the director Mangold was influenced by, but it could also be what I'm reminded of, what the other
Sure.
films that I'm reminded of. I I actually think there's a little bit of Birdman in
Hmm.
this.
Okay.
In the way that Michael Keaton struggles with being trapped inside his own fame, trying to reinvent himself. through being what the audience doesn't, through not being what the audience wants him to be, artistic integrity. And
Sure.
and and that's what every time every time someone wants to include him and wants to show their love for him, whether it's a fan or a music industry ally or a lover, all he does is push them away, get weird, and flip them off.
Sure.
And it's kind of the same situation that Michael Keaton is in that movie. I don't think that Mangold, based it on Birdman, but it reminded me of it.
No, I think that's absolutely fair, and they're both, very heavily propelled by the music in a lot of ways. And one of the best aspects of Birdman is its score, which is very percussive, and it just keeps things moving, boom, 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 like a concert in a way. You could also, on a kind of a smaller scale, you could kind of just point to Edward Norton having two of his best performances of the last 15 years or so. There was a moment in the late 90s where he was just one of the best actors around, and then he just kind of, I don't know, the roles kind of dried up for a while, but Birdman just kind of came back with just an amazing performance. And here, I think he's great as Pete Seeger. I think he does a great job.
There's certain actors that I rely on because I trust their choices,
Mhm.
and some of them you can tell they're in a period where that goes a little south. I think for a while Ed's choices were a little
Yeah.
they were like comedic. It's like Nicole Kidman. I mean, what are you talking about? The '90s? Yeah, then everything she's in is great. Now everything she's in is horrible.
Well, I think she's got some stuff, but I did not like Baby Girl, so
Or perfect
yeah.
couple. Oh my god, how bad was that?
Yeah, so I will go to Inside Llewyn Davis for my next one,
Oh
which
yeah, that was based on Bob Dylan. I heard.
it was based technically on Dave Van Ronk, is who they say that it was specifically based on, who I guess was like another folk singer around the scene who just never broke out. And it is just such a fantastic movie. It's actually one of my all-time favorites, and there's a lot of reasons we can get into. Like, it's like a long conversation to have, but as far as its comparison here, I mean, it is literally the same folk scene that
Mm.
all of this kind of grew out of. I'm sure the Llewyn Davis character, or Dave Van Ronk, or Bob Dylan himself, they all were playing on the same stages, meeting
Yeah,
the same people, sleeping on the same couches, all that stuff.
absolutely.
So they,
Marvelous Miss Maisel too.
yeah,
It's all.
sure.
I kept thinking about Marvelous Miss Maisel when they were going in down in the cellars, like by Cafe Wa.
I love it. I love it. Bonus puzzle piece there for sure. Yeah, I think that it's a really fun like world, because I mean, I certainly, I was way too young to know any of this stuff. I, born after all of it, but to be able to kind of get that glimpse into it is so much fun, because this is, it's kind of the best era in music, and so seeing all of these legendary things kind of play out is it's just awesome.
Oh
And
yeah, and my mother can confirm the authenticity of the exterior used for the Chelsea Hotel,
mm,
because my sister dragged her to it. And the only time my mother got emotional during the whole movie was when she said, "Ooh," because there was a restaurant in the AI depiction of the exterior
yeah.
called Coyote. That your father and I used to go there in the '60s. They got that right.
God, amazing, amazing. Yeah, my parents talked through the entire Elvis movie about all kinds of stuff. So yeah, so let's go to another piece. What do you got next?
Um, I like I think 8 Mile. The story of the rise
Okay,
against incredible odds in a music scene.
yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that a little.
Oh, I think that's actually a really good one. I hadn't thought of it, but now that you're bringing it up, he's also somebody who got voice of a generation thrust upon him, whether he
Yeah,
wanted it or not. So I think certainly those two people in history, even not necessarily just the movie, but the people themselves, Eminem and Bob Dylan, both share that a lot. And so yeah, it's a really interesting one to throw on here, and also a great movie. I mean, 8 Mile is much better than it really needed to be. It's just a really good one. So
yep.
I like that. I will jump a little outside the box here for my next one with The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, the Terry Gilliam film.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I
It's a
remember that.
it's a wild one, and this movie is not like all fantastical like that, but at the same time, it is about a character who his entire story is made up of half truths and just stories that you just do not know whether or not you could trust or believe any of it. And that's not speaking to James Mangold's portrayal of Bob Dylan. That's speaking to how Bob Dylan portrays himself, and that we simply don't know what his actual story is, why he's doing what he's doing, and so of course he can't tell that in the movie because it's just how he's portrayed himself all these years.
Oh, that's a yeah. I never thought of that. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a great
Um,
movie too. It's definitely worth going and revisiting.
we're both trying to avoid the obvious ones. Let me just bring an obvious one into it then,
Sure.
with Elvis. I mean, you already mentioned it.
Hmm.
It needs to be brought up because of all of the loud uproar against the factual inaccuracies. I remember the big one from Elvis was that he never fired the colonel on
Mm,
stage. You know that they were. He never said what he said. The colonel was an absolutely horrible person.
sure.
He kept Elvis, as you know, from ever touring outside the U.S. because he was afraid he wouldn't be able to get back in. He was an illegal alien,
Sure.
and made just horrible decisions. And Elvis just trusted him because he's the guy who happened to have noticed him and acted first. Um, and but I think that they're alike because the lead did a great job in that too. And you're dealing with there's not really that much room to play and fictionalize a story that people know by heart.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That was the big problem.
Yeah, there's not that much creative room.
100%.
Right, and the thing about Amadeus again, which was great, I mean, Salieri didn't kill Mozart.
Sure. Yeah.
Salieri did not kill Mozart, but it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah. It makes a great movie. So that's right. That's right. But yeah, no, Elvis it definitely had the same uphill battle, and you get that Baz Luhrmann, just the bells and whistles. James Mangold's a great filmmaker. I mean, sure, let's throw Walk the Line on the list as long as we're going to get
Yeah,
into the music biopics. It's like James Mangold going back, and of course Johnny Cash plays a part in this movie, and so
yeah.
it's kind of him getting a chance to look at a different angle on that character, another story within his life that he didn't get to like kind of explore and walk the line. But yeah, I mean, to take it back to Elvis as well, I mean, Austin Butler's portrayal, I mean, it's just such a huge role to fill, and I think he did a great job. And like I already said, I think Timothée Chalamet was good in here. Also, both are there's plenty of music biopics we could talk about, but those are both ones that the person actually sang the songs, and that's
Right.
that's a pretty big accomplishment in itself, I think.
Do you know if Mangold tried to get Joaquin Phoenix for the Dylan movie? Because I
I
I think that would
don't.
have been good.
That would have been wild. Because like this isn't, people have kind of like joked that like are all since we get a new music biopic every year, it's like, are they gonna, marvel it and turn it into a shared universe and all that stuff? Like that would be like a first step in that direction. And like I don't even know if the world needs that. But it's just
No, but if if,
you
if
know.
if we saw Joaquin Phoenix as Johnny Cash right away, we would know who he was. You
Yeah,
wouldn't you
no,
wouldn't have to be told.
absolutely. Speaking to that point, Danny Boyle is making 4 Beatles movies.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was like it's like a they're each separate, and
Yeah.
then I heard they're like a Rashomon kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
from. Yeah, that's a little too. I mean, there's so the source material is so overused and scarce now.
Yeah.
Beatles 64 is a piece of crap. From what I hear, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But it's not anything that any Beatles fan hasn't seen before.
It's just a
There,
crazy decision. Like, how do they think, even if it's the Beatles, how they can sustain that kind of box office to make it worthwhile for them to even do it,
I don't understand. Maybe he has some great take on the 4 different films, but I don't see it. I don't see it
Yeah.
at all. And
It's
and, and
weird.
I thought that the last, I thought that that Oh my God, I'm forgetting his name now. The one who did Let It Be as Get Back.
Is that the Peter Jackson thing?
Yeah, Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
I think I saw that coming. I knew this was going to be a horrible thing because this is only a movie for Beatles fanatics who can sit and watch that stuff. There was nothing happening on screen for most of that footage, and my wife wanted to see it, and I said, "Don't, no, I want to see it because they're advertising it a lot." And it was just like watching somebody's day. It was so boring. That's Let It Be had its flaws and showed only the sad side. And so yeah, there was joy, even though they were breaking up, but the minutia to have to sit and watch that's not for a general audience. That's for a DVD set just for the Beatle fanatics. It's
Yeah.
not, and it wasn't for the Disney Channel. That was wrong, and I think that turned a lot of people off on it failed. I know it failed with Gen Z because my daughter sat in for like 20 minutes and then left and said, "I'm not watching any of this. This is
Yeah.
awful."
Yeah. It's, I don't know, weird choices what they're trying to do with they're just trying to squeeze every little music thing since Bohemian Rhapsody. That's really why, like I said at the beginning when it came into this, I was a little worried. But I was going to throw something in there that I actually haven't seen. I'm wondering if you've seen it. Have you seen I'm Not There, the Todd Haynes Dylan movie?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. That was the one where a bunch of different actors played him at different times. Kate Blanchett was one of them.
Oh, I've heard about that. Yeah, that sounds interesting. If I run across it on that streaming, I'll do it. I'll check it out. But
Yeah, I've always wanted to, and I've never gotten around to it. But I do think it's an interesting way to kind of dig into, again, we've talked about it before, but like this idea of Dylan kind of purposefully keeping a shroud of secrecy around himself and what he wants to portray. And by having all these different actors play him, it just kind of
yeah, that's great. Yeah,
it.
I remember reading about that and thinking that would be fantastic to watch, but I just haven't seen it anywhere.
Yeah.
I want to throw one in just to make a point. Temple Grandin.
Okay.
Because it's a story about overcoming autism, and Bob Dylan was the most autistic person who's never officially been diagnosed as autistic that I've ever come across. And just in the fact of how he has problems socializing and interacting with people who want to express their affection for him, and of course his musical genius being a flip side of the neurons not being concentrated in his brain where they're supposed to be. So he doesn't have a hell of a lot. So he tells, I don't know if it really happened, but I love it when he tells Joan Baez that she tries too hard and her art is like a hotel oil painting, which is so true.
Yeah. he's trying to say a nice thing in there, but yeah, I wonder how many of the most amazingly talented artists of that era were just undiagnosed. Probably a lot.
Probably are. I think that's the flip side of the gift. Autism isn't a disease.
Yeah,
it's just a difference. It's a neurodivergence. I was diagnosed with it, but I only have it like my therapist says about 20%. So just enough to wreck a lot of my important relationships, but not enough to ever have someone go, "Oh, don't be offended. He has autism." Yeah, and what it is it's neurons being concentrated in places in the brain where they're not typically concentrated, and because they're concentrated in that one area. With me, it's with writing. They're sparse in areas where they should be more plentiful, like in not pissing people off and getting social cues.
Yeah, those things that make things easy. But yeah. So I got one last puzzle piece to bring up here, and that is Martin Scorsese's The Aviator. I
thought you were going to say Raging Bull.
Oh, that could work too. I could see that.
The Aviator, that's good. Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking about this character who it's not just about the character though. Leonardo DiCaprio's Howard Hughes, of course, but it's about all of this tapestry of a moment in time and capturing it all. That is such a hard thing to do. We already talked about, Joan Baez, Johnny Cash, Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, all these people that they have to kind of nail and get the characters together and get the times and get the places, all that. And of course in the Aviator we were turning into characters: Katharine Hepburn, Ava Gardner, Errol
Yeah.
Flynn, all these people, and we have to get the places and the settings and these moments in time that are so known by everybody, and so it's just a huge undertaking to make a movie like that. And somebody like Scorsese pulls it off beautifully, but I think James Mangold did here too as well. I think he got together an amazing cast, and I think everybody was really good, and really did a good job of recreating that moment in time.
Somebody else who's neurodivergent as well.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good list of puzzle pieces we got into. Any closing thoughts? Anything we didn't quite talk about that you want to mention about A Complete Unknown?
Well, I think most people are missing the third meaning of the title. The title would be, obviously it's a lyric from like a Rolling Stone, and also he was a complete unknown when he
Hmm.
arrived in Greenwich Village. But the most important uh, meaning of the phrase is that you can't know him in any
Hmm.
situation that he's in. Everybody around him he is a stranger. He's just, like I said in the beginning, like a space alien, like
Yeah.
Bowie. I think with Bowie it was a little bit more put on though. With Dylan, that's just who he is. He can't help.
Right. Right. That's just
There's
him.
a doc on Netflix of We Are the World, and if you watch it, like was it Lionel Richie was saying, like we all were so happy to see each other and finally get to meet each other and to have to have meaningful conversations, and Bob's like sitting in the corner by himself, and
Yeah.
that's who he was.
Yeah.
Is it's so hard. It's always a dead guy, but he's
Right.
Bob's still alive. You forget he's
Right.
hanging out still in Santa Monica. He actually they got. Oh, this is a fun bit of trivia that I read. Mangold, was he the screenwriter too?
He co-wrote it. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, he just gave it to Dylan for approval. I'm not sure for because he had to for the image and the songs or whatever the reason. Dylan approved it, but Dylan said you need to use this one piece, one scene that I'm telling you to use, and Dylan told him about it, and Mangold refuses to say what the scene was because
Hmm.
he made a promise to Dylan not to reveal it, but all of the Bob Dylan experts are saying it's the one with the Betty Davis film, no, Now Voyager,
Hmm.
because there's no way because Sylvie, who is Suze Rotolo, uh,
Right.
she died, and Dylan are the only two people who would know what film they were watching and why it meant something to them.
Interesting. I thought you were going to go to. I just read this earlier today about how when Dylan had the script in hand, he acted out the whole thing just to see how it would be.
Oh no, I didn't hear. I
Yeah,
didn't.
that was something that I had just seen in an interview today, which is just such an interesting thing to do for somebody getting a movie made about their life. But yeah, an interesting character, and like obviously there's at least three, I think three major documentaries, like not counting like straight to video things or something, but obviously major ones like Don't Look Back and stuff
Don't Look
like
Back.
that.
Right. No
Yeah,
Direction Home.
no Direction Home, and so now two movies, including that I'm Not There. I feel like there's just so much to tell with him. Whether or not you're getting facts right, whether or not you're making things up, like there's just so much to tell with him. So we'll see more, I think, of Dylan in movies over time. But I do want to ask you one thing. I want to put you on the spot real quick,
Mm.
since I've got you here for a music biopic movie, and you are a big music writer. Is there a bucket list music biopic you'd love to see one day?
I'd love to see a true Rolling Stones one
Mm,
because Mick and Keith have always. I mean, they they were they everything. from Anita Pallenberg to you know to Brian. They've really mistreated a lot of people along the way, and that
Mm,
story can't be told because they need to have approval on any. So they kind of, I guess, need to die for the truth to come out.
right.
Uh, and
So that'll
I
be a
think it's
while.
more Mick than Keith. I don't think Keith. I think Mick was kind of a selfish guy. He always has been. I remember, they asked him to do some big charity thing. I forgot what it was. Oh no, he did Live Aid, but before that, and he was like, it, the Rolling Stones is a charity or something like that.
Mm,
It's the biggest charity case that I can work on, or something like that. And yeah, he's yeah. I think I would like to see the dirty side of that group really get exposed because I think they've been around. I think they've been able to kind of avoid having that be the case.
hmm. Yeah, I'm sure there would be a lot to tell there for sure. So, Corey, is there another movie you watched recently you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. Okay.
Mm,
Well, let me go ask Joanne. Hold on.
sure.
He doesn't know either. We're a couple of idiots.
Wow.
We don't remember anything. There
Amazing.
were a couple. I'm sure they were great, but we have no idea.
You know what?
We have lives, David. We don't
Yeah,
sit and
yeah.
watch movies for
There
a
you
living.
go. You'll have to give me one next time you're on the show, Corey. So tell people anything you want to plug, where people can find you or anything.
I do a column for casino.org where I bust myths about Vegas. It was something that I actually pitched to the RJ, and my editor turned me down. So this is sort of a little piece of vengeance success.
Mm,
I've done 200 of them so far, and I've still got like a lot more to go. And if you want to read them, they're at I set up my own website that forwards to it. It's vegasmythsbusted.com.
right on, right on. Well, Corey, thank you so much for doing the show, and maybe we'll get you back again sometime.
All right, well, say hi to your hot mom.
Hi, this is Wax Trax Records here on 2909 South Decatur. We buy all your old 45s, your old albums, any type of music memorabilia. Also, we sell music memorabilia, albums, CDs, and a lot. Come on down to Wax Trax, 2909 South Decatur, or give me a call at 702-362-4300. Thank you very much.
I had to include that Wax Trax ad on here. My dad would kill me if I didn't on an episode about Bob Dylan. Of course, Wax Trax Records here in Las Vegas, where I work, and you could find all kinds of Bob Dylan stuff. So, if you're in Vegas, come check it out. Come say hi to me. But that's our episode for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Corey Levitan for joining me on that one. And if you're enjoying the show, make sure you are subscribed. We've got a lot of episodes on the way. It's a whole new year. We're going to cover so many different things. Also, there's all these end of the year episodes. I'm not sure when I'm scheduling this one for release, so some of those may be out, but I believe they won't all be out by the time this is up. So lots of special episodes, regular episodes. I got more live shows on the way. And yeah, make sure you're subscribed. Also, drop us a 5-star rating and review while you're at it. So that way, more people will check out the show. You can follow us on social media at PiecingPod. Don't forget we have a Patreon, the Produced by David Rosen Patreon at patreon.com/bydavidrosen, where we have bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, Awesome Movie Year, and from my music career. Lots of great stuff over there, so check it out if you want to support the show. And with that said, I got to close this out with a piece of music like I always do. And I went full Dylan on the first The Pup Pups album. So I'm going to go with the song Big Bright Eyes, which is just a purely stupid little song about my dog Harvey. And it was actually the first Pup Pup song I released, I believe. It was either that or Covered in Blankets. But that was back 17 years ago, before I finally actually got the ball rolling on making the album. The first album took me 15 years as the whole story. I've talked about it before, but now there's 3 Pup Pups albums and a 4th on the way this year. But anyway, this was one of the first The Pup Pups songs, and yeah, I'm definitely doing a Dylan thing. So this is a clear pick to close this episode out with. So hope you enjoy it. And we'll be back with more piecing it together real soon. Big and bright eyes, smile the size of rainbows. Big and bright eyes, smile the size of rainbows. He's a little boy, he like playing with daddy. Every little day his tail wagging. He loves to go and then he kisses his mama. Look playing with city, but he don't want no drama. Big and bright eyes, smile the size of rainbows. Big and bright eyes, smile the size of rainbows. Big and bright eyes, smile the size of rainbows. Big and bright eyes, smile the size of rainbows. Hey, a little boy, and he like running and rolling. Where we lay in bed, he likes to get overloaded. One thing is for certain, Harvey, he is a boy. Every baby thing is always playing with toys. Big and bright eyes, smile the size of rainbows. Big and bright eyes, smile the size of rainbows. Big and bright eyes, smile the size of rainbows. Big and bright eyes, smile the size of rainbows.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.